Hey everyone, I'm Jason, and welcome back to Dorfromantik. I managed to collect all 85 achievements from the game, and today I'm going to show you some of the maps where I collected those achievements. So now I'm going to show you a few of the games where I managed to collect some of the achievements. So yes, this was a relatively high-scoring game with a very big map that I created. And this was the map where I received Engineer 4, which required me to form a route with at least 75 rail pieces. So yeah, to see the whole rail system you have to zoom out this far, which obviously you'll see a lot better closer up. But it is not enclosed, but it has lots of loops. And lots of the water clock towers, which can also connect rail pieces. And as you can see, several trains traversing the various loops along the track. Here's a big loop, kind of in the form of a trapezoid, if I'm remembering my shapes correctly. Here we have a hexagon. And of course the edge of the rail line is up against this giant field system. And we do have a river system that goes through some of the water clock towers as well. giant field system. The water system that only has one of the water clock towers because I was using them all for the rail line. I don't know if that one has any boats. I don't think it does. Still pretty though. Another water system without boats and without clock towers. And our sprawling rail line. So this is my highest score in Dorfromantik. This is the game that I was able to collect the achievement for getting a score over 30,000 points. Now, towards the end of the game, as you get into the pi 20,000s, it tends to stop giving you quests that you can easily complete, or at least that's my interpretation of it. At which point you have to get perfect tiles, meaning that it has no incompatible edges, and so at that point you're searching the map for a spot where there's a tile where there's just one edge that is unconnected to something, and all of the other edges are perfectly matching the tiles surrounding them, so that you can complete that, you can enclose that tile such that all of the edges match, and then you get a certain number of points, but just as importantly, you get one additional tile. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've run out of quests that you can complete before running out of tiles, it becomes the only way to keep the game going. So I had to do that lots of times in order to just barely get over the 30,000 point threshold, which I was able to do in this game. Nice city clock tower there. It looks like one solitary boat in that giant river system. But a key to a high score is closing off forests in particular, but cities as well, fields as well, where you have completed quests and gotten a little flag. If you surround those systems such that there are no more, you've completely surrounded it, so there's no way to build the city bigger or build the forest larger with contiguous edges, then you get points for all of the flags that you have in that forest or that city. And if you want a really high scoring game, you do that by completing quests, getting perfect pieces with no incompatible edges, and perhaps most importantly, closing off the systems where you have the flags so you can get additional tiles. If you have a particularly large forest where you've accumulated lots of flags, closing off that forest can get you a lot of tiles that can extend the game by quite a bit. So this is the last map that I'm going to show you. And this is the map where I received the final achievement, which was Analyst 6. Collect 660 points with a single tile placement. That was a very difficult achievement to collect. Lots of trial and error, several games where getting that achievement was my explicit goal that I built the entire playing of the game around. And for a few of those games, what I tried to do is I tried to have a single spot where I would be closing off both a giant forest and a city with at least a flag. And in practice that just meant a city with one flag. Because it's really hard to have your giant forest and your giant city conveniently next to each other. When you're building those things, it's easier to have them have their own space. And that didn't quite do it. So after a few attempts, in this game, what I was able to do was to have one spot where I closed off a giant forest, and I happened, through luck, to get enough forest quests to have quite a few flags, so that when that forest was closed off, I was able to collect lots of points, but not quite enough to get me over the edge. So what I ended up doing was made it so that that spot could have several perfect tiles, so that when that piece was put in to close off the forest, I was able to get several perfect tile placements for the tiles surrounding it. So we see this little pond here. That was the one. That was the tile that gave me that achievement. As you can, well, I guess we'll look at the forest first, because that's the biggest part of that. And just all of these trees. And there are lots of flags, you know, going all the way back up here to like the middle of the map. And I was trying to get as many, you know, contiguous edges as possible to get a score and to keep the game going. And here, the terminus of the forest, having closed off any other spot where the forest could be added to, and to fully envelop and fully enclose the forest, have this tile, which had 2 forest edges, the rest, and let's see if I can, yeah, zoom super in there, several plains edges, and looked like it did have a house edge, a city edge, because those 2 tiles both have that, and then another plain edge there. So yeah, it looks like that was a perfect tile placement, and then several of the tiles surrounding it are perfect tile placements as well. Yeah, because that one has trees and they're in the right spot, and fields in the right spot, and plains in the right spot, and houses in the right spot. Likewise for this one. So this one wasn't fully enclosed. It's kind of hard to tell where the edges are for some of the more busy tiles. So yeah, this one isn't a perfect placement because you have a field edge next to a tree edge, so that one wouldn't have worked. But looks like this one did. I'm not gonna count. Well, maybe I will. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like 4 perfect tile placements. So that wouldn't have been, like, my guess is that wouldn't have been, so yeah, I'm not going to be able to remember or recreate the exact number with any confidence there. But it took a long time, because you don't decide which tile you get. You get a tile, and you have to play it somewhere. So I knew the kind of piece that I needed. But I was getting down to the end, and again, just getting more tiles was just getting more perfect placements so that you would get an additional tile to potentially use. And yeah, got the one I needed and placed it, and at that point, because you've completed the giant forest with all of the flags, then you have, 50, 40 or so more tiles to play, but that was when I got the achievement, which was what I had set out to do with the game. I did play out the rest of the game. I might have taken a break at that point, but yeah, I did come back and finish the full game. But that was hard. that took a lot of trial and error, not just in this game, but across games. And thankfully there is an undo button. You can't undo more than just one tile placement. But yeah, when you're going for a specific achievement and you're trying to see if, is this going to get me over the line, that is your best friend. So you don't have to play an entire new game just to get another chance at pulling that off. Take a look at a couple of the clock towers here. And again, it's nice to just have some animals across the map. And as far as I can tell, the animal is specific to the tile, meaning that it's not going to go exploring around to the other tiles. It is confined digitally to that little piece of the map. Giant river system over here. Water and rail lines. Hexagon of rail tracks down there with a terminus in the middle. Again, that specific tile was what got me the final achievement that I needed to round out the collection there. 85 achievements in all. So, if this seems like your kind of game, and if you've watched enough of the video to get to this spot, it probably is. I recommend giving it a try. It's great. It's fun, relaxing. You can do it while you're listening to a video or a podcast or what have you in the background, and just a very fun game. So yeah, I showed you lots of different maps in this video. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't seen my first video where I do the same thing, going through different Dorfromantik maps that I've created and discuss them, I recommend that you watch that one as well. At some point I do plan to upload a gameplay video of Dorfromantik, but I wanted to display these maps for you before they became far enough in the past that I haven't had enough other saved games that I would have trouble finding them or would have forgotten about them. So as always, thank you all for watching. I guess before I close out the video, I do have another recommendation for you. I have been watching a lot of videos of a social deduction game called Blood on the Clocktower. It's a game where you have a good team and an evil team, and the good team don't know who the bad players are, and most of the time the bad players do know who each other are. It's a kind of a deduction game, kind of like Werewolf, if you've played that, or Secret Hitler. And essentially there is a demon. The good team has to figure out who the character who is playing the demon is and execute them, and in order to win the game. And all of the players have different abilities, and it's the ones who are on the bad team have bluffs, and they're trying to pretend to be other characters who do things that are different than the things that they actually do. You have good players who are sometimes bluffing to protect themselves because they have a really powerful ability and they don't want the bad team to know who they are. And yeah, it's a very fun, complicated game that would be very difficult to run as a storyteller who's kind of making sure that the mechanics are applied correctly and that the people are using their powers in the correct way. But for a player who has just one specific thing to do, it seems like it would be very fun to start playing as a player. So there are videos of this from No Rules Barred, which is a board game channel that I've been discussing and promoting here on my channel. Their first Blood on the Clocktower video is great. It has a good introduction to what the game is and how it works. They have more recent videos that are of much higher production quality where they do it in person, whereas the early games were done via Zoom or some other similar system. And then I've been watching videos from the Blood on the Clocktower YouTube channel. And yeah, for me it's just really fun to have in the background as just kind of silly nonsense noise of people having fun and trying to figure out what's going on. And obviously it is a very complicated game. But if you're someone who enjoys complicated games and watching people try to suss each other out and figure out who's lying and who's not, and figure out the best way to deceive other people in the group, or the best player to, figure out what's going on, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, I think I will link to the first No Rules Barred plays Blood on the Clocktower video in the description. Yeah, that was a very long wind-up to a recommendation, but again, hopefully with enough detail to know if that sounds like your kind of thing, and if not, that's fine, but if so, you might get a lot of enjoyment out of it as well. Haven't played the game as of yet, Blood on the Clocktower, but I do plan to try that at some point. But I've had lots of fun watching the various Let's Plays of it. So, now finally, as always, have a great day.